Void Mage Gamer is now partnered with Flipside Gaming, so you can use the promo code on their website, all caps Void Mage, to get 10% off all orders $10 or more. It's a great way that you can support both Flipside Gaming and Void Mage Gamer's channel. Hello everyone, welcome back to another Top 10 Commander video. This time we're going to be going over the Orzhov guild post Ravnica Allegiance, so anything after that is unknown to me as of the making of this video. Orzhov is probably my favorite guild. It just combines a lot of things that I enjoy playing with: life gain, tokens, and along with all of that you get some of the best removal in the format, and that is usually going to come in the form of exiling. But as always, we're going to start the video off here with some honorable mentions, and we have a ton. Orzhov is stacked when it comes to decent commander options. We have the partner commanders, Krav and Regna. I really enjoy playing with these. You get some awesome interactions with both of them. And we of course have Tymna the Weaver and Ravos Soul Tender, also partner options that you can go with. Individually though, I just don't think that they're that strong. And we also have Ailey Eternal Pilgrim. Kind of just left her off the list because I felt that she was very specific towards the life gain. But overall, though, I think she is definitely a good creature. 2/3 Death Touch for 2 mana. Very solid as a commander. So let's start it off here with number 10, which is the best planeswalker, in my opinion, in Orzhov, and that is Soren Grim Nemesis. You get a decent +1 that can get you a card and also punish your opponents if that card is a high CMC. So pair him up with something like Aminatu that you can fix the top card of your deck with. That can be a lot of fun. His minus is pretty much just removal. Maybe not as good because he does come in with 6 loyalty. So that is the range of what you can really remove as soon as he enters the battlefield. But you do gain some life off of that, and his ult is pretty cool. You just get a ton of vampire tokens. You can overwhelm your opponents. It's not a straight up win con, but depending on the deck you're playing, if you have anthems, if you have anything to protect those tokens with indestructible, that could be quite an army. Overall though, the selection for Orzhov planeswalkers, you don't have anything overwhelmingly powerful. You just have a lot of okay stuff with the Sorens. This is the best Soren in my opinion. The one that's black and white at least. But you have the Kayas. I just don't think they do too much. So yeah, I definitely wanted to put at least one of the planeswalkers on this list because they do have a presence in the format. So moving on to number 9, we have Debtors Knell. Lower on the list because it does take a while for it to get going. It has to survive a full turn cycle. And most of the time, everybody's just going to be looking at graveyards, wondering whether or not they should just destroy this before it gets out of hand. But it is one of those few cards that will allow you to take creatures from your opponent's graveyards as well. Because we have certain things like Immortal Servitude, Ravos Soul Tender that only deal with cards in your graveyard, your creatures. Debtors Knell is 7 mana, but it's definitely worth it. Maybe not as commonly seen as some of the other cards on this list, but it is pretty powerful. Number 8, we have Debt to the Deathless. This is basically a better Exsanguinate in Orzhov colors. You kind of reach this threshold of 6 mana, and then anything after that, Debt to the Deathless is just pure value by comparison. The more mana you put into it, the more life loss you're going to force from your opponents. If you pay 20 mana for both spells, you're going to get 32 out of Debt to the Deathless, whereas you're only going to get 18 with Exsanguinate, so 2 times X is definitely relevant. A little bit lower because I feel like it just is a 1-card win condition and it's not that involving. And I usually appreciate cards that are a little bit more interactive, whether it's removal, just good abilities, and not just straight up win conditions, but I think it is a pretty good one if you decide to go with it. So yeah, Debt to the Deathless, in terms of just pure power, it can win you games. Number 7, we have Kembal, Consul of Allocation. This is a pretty good card if you just want to throw it into any kind of deck in black and white, if you want to slow your opponents down. Kind of in the same category as Rurik Thar, although I will say Kembal will stay on the field a lot longer than Rurik Thar because Rurik Thar has to attack. He's likely going to get himself killed, and that's 6 damage versus just losing 2 life. It's a big difference. It's still annoying, but your opponents are a lot less likely to get frustrated over that, and you're slowly just going to gain a ton of life in exchange. Life gain decks love them, control decks love them, pillow fort decks love the slow life gain. Overall, slowly draining your opponents of life is very good. And even if the card just makes your opponents a little bit more cautious with what they play, it still serves its purpose. It's just a 3-mana creature that's going to sit on the field and call the shots. It's really good. Number 6, we have Talisa Orzhov Sion. One of my personal all-time favorite commander options, not just in Orzhov, but all around. You have one of the most versatile commanders I can think of. In terms of just not being linear, you have so many directions you can go with. You can go with tokens, you can go with death triggers, you can go with control because she does have removal built in. There's just a lot of reasons to like her, and I've always liked her because you do have that ability to sacrifice the 3 white creatures to exile a creature. When you have exiling removal, plentiful and it's that abundant, you can really call the shots in a game. It's very difficult for your opponents to come back if you can just repeatedly exile their creatures. Not only this, but you have a ton of black-white creatures that you're going to be able to sacrifice to that ability, and then you get rewarded for sacrificing them by getting more white spirits that you can then sacrifice those and then remove even more creatures. It can be one of the most frustrating creatures to have to deal with in the format, even more so as a commander, and a lot of people forget that you can sacrifice Talisa to her own ability to exile a creature, so if you're desperate, don't be fooled, you always have that option open. And if you do want to go with a powerful combo, you could go with the Darkest Hour Blasting Station combo, or you could substitute Blasting Station for Altar of Dementia, or really any combo that involves sacrificing those creatures. Maybe you have a Blood Artist. Very powerful commander option, and she has been for quite a while. But number 5 is the new Talisa Karlov. There's no activated ability, she just exists to make your other creatures better. She has a good trigger, which does trigger with your other creatures getting triggered. When they die, you get another trigger. So a lot of triggers going on there. And other than that, she gives static abilities to all of your creature tokens, which is probably the most underrated thing about her, is that you have a token army. They all have vigilance and lifelink. There's no reason why you shouldn't just be attacking with them every turn. So you can make a viable token deck with her, but I will say that the death triggers is pretty dang powerful. Probably more powerful than the previous Talisa, which by the way, you should probably be playing in a Talisa Karlov deck. You just have some of the most insane abilities on death triggers. You have Kokosho, you have Yosei. Having these trigger twice is insane. Not just that, but you have other permanents that get death triggers. Grave Pact, Butcher of Malakir. You have Elenda the Dusk Rose, which has 2 death triggers, which can get out of hand really quickly. And you'll find out how much of a pain in the ass she can be. But yeah, you just have so much power with the theme of aristocrats, which Talisa Orzhov Sion was already a pretty good option for that kind of deck. But Talisa Karlov is just insane, giving you something we've never seen before, and doubling death triggers is just crazy. Number 4, we have Aetherios, God of Passage. Now, in terms of being a commander option, he can be quite annoying, but unlike previous options with those 2 Talisas, I feel like Aetherios is really good no matter where you put him. If you want him as one of the 99, I think he's going to be really good and just as annoying as a commander, because getting whatever creature you want back to your hand, it's such a political card because you can choose anybody and say, hey, pay 3 life or I get it back to my hand. And most of the time, they're just going to let you have it back in your hand. There are very few occasions where paying 3 life is actually going to be beneficial, and most of the time you're just whittling yourself down so that you have even less life to pay later in the game. It really kind of forces your opponents to make that decision whether or not they want to let you have some of your creatures back earlier in the game, or they want to save up some life so that they can then pay it later in the game. That's usually the way to go, but I just found often he's an indestructible enchantment, very difficult to deal with. You can keep a full hand with this card, replay all of your creatures, and sometimes you can just win a game by playing the same 3 creatures over and over again. And a very powerful strategy with Aetherios is just throwing in things like Karmic Guide, Revulark, sometimes making it irrelevant whether or not they pay the 3 life. Just overwhelmingly powerful in this format, like most of the gods often are. But if I had to say a personal favorite as a 2-color god to build a commander deck around, I think Aetherios is really good and one of the best in the format. Number 3, we have Utter End. Now, the following card, it's just going to come down to your preference, what kind of deck you're building, and do you like removal, because Utter End is not the best removal that you can get in Orzhov, but it's pretty damn close, at least as far as targeting goes. 4 mana, you can exile a target non-land permanent. Now, side by side with something like Return to Dust, you have to weigh the importance of what you're removing. Do you really need to deal with creatures or planeswalkers? Then Utter End is more valuable, but I think just the versatility of being able to exile an indestructible creature, deal with a problem planeswalker, being able to deal with non-land permanents in general is very good in exiling removal. The only thing at that point you have to worry about is hexproof, shroud, or protection from white or black, so Utter End is pretty viable in the format, but it's not better than number 2, which is Anguished Unmaking. There's a multitude of reasons why I would say it's better than Utter End, the obvious being it costs 1 less mana. You do pay that 1 less mana, but you do lose 3 life, so there is a trade-off there. It's a negligible difference in Commander though, losing 3 life, because most of the time in black and white you have plenty of life gain. It's just much better to have that 1 less mana to pay so that you can free it up for other things, other removal spells, or maybe you're an Esper and you have some counter spells. But if you had to talk about throwing cards into multicolored decks beyond Orzhov colors, if we're talking about Esper, maybe you're playing 5-color decks, and you have to go with the best of the best in terms terms of removal spells, most of the time you're going to pick Anguished Unmaking over Utter End because that 1 mana does make a difference. And oftentimes, you're looking for things to cut, you're usually going to cut what feels redundant in your deck. And while I don't have a problem throwing in a lot of removal in my decks, I like throwing other really good spells in there as well. And sometimes, if you already satisfy a need in terms of exiling removal with Anguished Unmaking, you're probably going to forget about Utter End. I will say though that if you are in just Orzhov colors, there's no doubt about it, just play both of them. It's exile removal, I mean you'd be crazy not to. And then we have number 1, which has changed my opinion of these cards, but I do believe that Merciless Eviction is the number 1 card in Orzhov in the format. Anytime that you can deal with multiple permanents, you are going to essentially be able to deal with a similar problem that you could with Anguished Unmaking for twice the mana, yes, but you just choose whatever permanent type you don't like. You deal with artifacts, creatures, enchantments, planeswalkers, and it exiles all of them. So you have the best removal in the format in exiling, and it gives you the benefit that certain wraths don't, where you can be selective, have a lot of your stuff survive, while most of your opponent's stuff doesn't. If you're going up against an all-artifact deck, you can really punish them, or if someone's playing Super Friends, you can knock out all of their planeswalkers. Merciless Eviction is also pretty political, so you can make friends with people if you decide to protect their permanent type and you don't go after them. It is just one of the ultimate problem solvers that this format has to offer you. And if you do have to make that sacrifice, cutting something like Utter End, you have 2 of the best exiling removal spells in the entire format, so don't feel bad if you have to cut something like Utter End. Just the selective nature of the card, different modes to choose from, a lot of versatility there. You can deal with just about anything in your way. Awesome card, I love it, and it belongs in just about every single black-white deck you can throw it into. But anyway guys, that's going to do it for this video. Let me know what you think about Orzhov, what you thought about Ravnica Allegiance, what you think about the next set coming up. As always, you guys have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video.